All right. What's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Hoff, part of the Face Off Sports Network. Right now, I'm going to be giving you three quarterbacks to start, three to sit in week 7. Let's start from the top here. Let's go with Mr. Kirk Cousins. Listen, outside of that 38.36 fantasy points that he had a few weeks ago, he's only averaged 11.77 fantasy points this year. Should be noted, though, that 3 of those games, though, came against quarterbacks who were in the top 12 and fewest points allowed to the position. Luckily for Cousins, that's going to change this week. He's going up against the Seattle Seahawks in week 7. In weeks 1 through 3, the Seahawks allowed 10.5 points per game to quarterbacks. That was against quarterbacks like right here. You've got Bo Nix, Jacoby Brissett, Skylar Thompson. Then they started playing some real QBs. What happened then? Well, they got their doors blown off. They went from allowing 10.5 points in their first 3 weeks to 24.4 over the last few weeks. They have been getting bludgeoned here. 7 of the 8 touchdown passes that they have allowed have come during these last 3 weeks. So this is a prime opportunity here for Kirk Cousins going up against the Seattle Seahawks to get right, put up a solid fantasy outing. I like him quite a bit. I think he's got top 5 quarterback potential here in week 7. And that's saying something because you only have 2 teams on bye. We'll get to another quarterback. This quarterback is going to be starting bright and early on Sunday morning in good old foggy London. That's going to be Mr. Drake Maye. That's right. It's going to be May. Yeah, that just happened. That was organic. Going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're home away from home in London. In May's debut, he completed 20 of 33 passes, 243 yards. He did have 2 interceptions, but what's good for fantasies, he did have 3 touchdown passes. I mean, that's a lot of offensive output compared to what we were getting from Jacoby Brissett. So I like May to continue rolling here a little bit. And by rolling, I mean rolling in a May way, not rolling in a Jaden Daniels way. Don't get that confused. But this matchup, though, especially, we thought Cousins' matchup was good. May is going up against the Jaguars here. The Jaguars right now have allowed 20 plus points in 5 of their 6 games this season. They've had about 3 games where they've allowed over 30 points to the quarterback position. They are tops in the NFL in most points allowed by a significant margin. Listen to this. Quarterbacks that have faced the Jaguars this year, they've finished the following: 6th, 12th, 2nd, 5th, 4th, 2nd again. Listen, maybe you want to look at it from this perspective. Like I mentioned earlier, you only have 2 teams on bye. So maybe you're not up against it with the quarterback position. But if you're in a league that's maybe you're in a super flex, maybe you're in a 16 teamer, maybe you're in, something bigger than a 12. Drake May is a very realistic option with this matchup. He could help you start your Sunday right. Again, bright and early as you're pouring your coffee. Drake May could be pouring it all over the Jaguars defense. So that is my second start of the week. Let's get to my third, and this one is a little more obvious than Drake May, or at least it should be. It's Baker Mayfield with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Ravens. Right now, Mayfield is the quarterback 2 in fantasy on the year, just like we all predicted. Lamar Jackson is the quarterback 1. He's averaged 29.06 points, and they've had 3 games with less than 20 points allowed, but have also, this being the Ravens, 3 games with less than 20 points allowed, but they've also had 2 games with more than 30 points allowed. So on the season right now, also, the Ravens are allowing 275.7 passing yards. It's the second highest mark in the league. And then after that, it's also worth noting the Ravens have allowed 1.8 passing touchdowns on a per-game basis. That's the 6th highest in the league, while the Bucs have thrown for a league-best 2.5 touchdowns on a per-game basis. So to me, this spells, and listen, we heard this when we talked last week about the Ravens and the Commanders, and it really didn't disappoint. We've heard it when we talked about some of these Buccaneers games, and they haven't disappointed. These games have the potential, no huge disrespect to the defenses, but these games have a potential to be a shootout, and it's got more so to do with the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks under center here. So I think Baker Mayfield, listen, we've come a long way from worrying about life after Dave Canales. I remember saying on this type of start sit that, listen, after the first few weeks, maybe things will die down for Baker. They have not died down. If anything, they have escalated. So to me, You're starting him, and I know I prefaced a lot of stuff with Drake Maye saying, well, it depends on the league depth, maybe two quarterback league. You're starting Baker Mayfield no matter what. If you have Baker Mayfield, you're starting. That's it. If you have Baker Mayfield or Jalen Hurts, you're starting Baker Mayfield this week. That's just a simple fact of it. So those are the three quarterbacks to start: Kirk Cousins, Drake Maye, Baker Mayfield. Before we get to the sits, I'll just remind you, beautiful people, if you'd like, feel free to hit the like button or the subscribe button. Helps us out immensely. Check out the rest of the start sit videos for week 7. But let's get to the bad news with the quarterback position in week 7. Let's get to our three sits. First one, Patrick Mahomes going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Listen, if his name was not Pat Mahomes, this would not be a hard pill to swallow. He's a QB 22 on the year. And yes, I get it. He just came off a bye. But you got Joe Flacco, who's creeping up on him in points scored for the year, and he only played in 3 games. So it's still not a great look. 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. This is, I feel like we're getting used to a until there are significant upgrades at the wide receiver position, which we've got a little bit left here before the trade deadline, or until Travis Kelce reverts back to his former self. I know we saw a nice game there before the bye, but until we see those things, we have to go into this with the expectation that the Kansas City Chiefs offense is not going to be the explosive offense that we saw in the first few years of Pat Mahomes' career. And listen, from an NFL perspective, that's fine. Because listen, he's still the quarterback for an undefeated Chiefs team that's a defending Super Bowl champion. But we're living in a fantasy football world. We kind of have to separate ourselves from that. So to me, I'm sitting Pat Mahomes this week, and I'm also sitting Pat Mahomes because he's going up against the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers have allowed 20 plus, they have allowed only 20 plus points just twice in their 6 games here this year. So I like them quite a bit in this matchup. I listen, I think this is also an opportunity where you're sitting Purdy too. I think both quarterbacks here, while we might see some points, I do think the quarterbacks are going to kind of underwhelm here. I think this is one of those games where the quarterbacks don't do so hot, but the skill position players come out looking okay. So this is going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be Spagnuolo. He's going to be working hard against the 49ers. We'll see what Sorensen has in mind scheme-wise, but until proven otherwise, I can't confidently put Pat Mahomes out there in like a 12 quarterback league. If you're in a 10 team, if you're a 12 team league, if you're in a 10 team league, I can't see playing Pat Mahomes right now. He's got to prove to me otherwise. So between the matchup, I am sitting Pat Mahomes. Just kind of putting that out there with the disclaimer because I get it. He's a big name. You think you're supposed to start him. You don't have to do that anymore, guys. It's okay to let go. Until proven otherwise, sit Pat Mahomes. We're going to go to teams here to sit because it's a little bit iffy on who the quarterbacks are going to be. Let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to be taking on the New York Jets on Sunday Night Football. Listen, if I had to put my money on it, I'm going to guess Russell Wilson's going to be the starter here this week. Justin Fields came out. He did give you some. He gave you some big weeks. Yes, he had 2 weeks with 20 plus points scored. He also gave you in the first 2 weeks 11 points. Then he had 19. Then he had around. Then he had the 20-point week, and then he came out with about 15.84. And then last week was another 20-point week. It was the second 20-point week that he's had. So I'm not seeing wonderful things here, and I especially don't think that we're going to see it against the New York Jets defense. The Jets defense, listen, for everything going on there, for the coach being fired, for all the drama with Aaron Rodgers and is he running the team and Devontae Adams is there and magically his hamstring is healed. No worries there. All of a sudden he's right as rain the moment he gets to Newark International Airport. But with all that aside, the Jets defense is still allowing the third fewest points at the quarterback position. So to me, that's going to be trouble for Justin Fields. And if Russell Wilson gets a start, you're talking about him entering against this defense in his first game back. I don't like that either, coming off of an injury. So I think both quarterbacks struggle here. And you've even heard the potential Mike Tomlin. While I don't really buy this, I think this is more gamesmanship, trying to make sure that Jeff Ulbrich and company prepare for both quarterbacks, like as if that's some kind of insurmountable feat here with these two guys. I don't envision a world where both of these guys play, but even if Mike Tomlin did say that, I could see both guys in the field. If they're both on the field throughout the game, that's going to hurt. So do you really want to pick your quarterback position, one of the more important positions on your fantasy football team? Are you going to want to ride that on the potential of having two guys on the field at the same time against a defense allowing the third fewest points? I'm not buying it. I'm not into it. So I'm going to be sitting whoever starts for Pittsburgh. They are sitting for me. Down the road, you might end up in a situation we're going to get some more teams on by this week. Only two teams, the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bears. Maybe you're more in a position to have to start one of these guys, and that's okay. And then you do it then. But right now, week 7, this ain't it, man. Let's go to the last final sit option here. I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts quarterbacks. Listen, if you watch this program, you know how much I love me some Joe Flacco, but I do have my limits, and they're going up against the Dolphins. And like I said, it's funny with everything going on with the Jets, they're still allowing the third fewest points. Well, guess what? With the sky falling in Miami every single week, the Dolphins are allowing the fewest points to opposing quarterbacks. And yes, they've had a bye week, but still, the points they've allowed is pretty significant. I think it's around 45 to 50 points is all that they've allowed to opposing quarterbacks this year. So to me, I think that's trouble for Joe Flacco. And more importantly, Anthony Richardson was close to playing last week. It was kind of a surprise that he was sitting. It's kind of a last minute thing that he was sitting too. So if we get Anthony Richardson in here and he's going to have to go ahead and try to go up against this defense, I think he has problems too, and even more so what I worry about with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is a very volatile player. He's either going to go out there and he's going to run the ball, he's going to throw, he's going to be inaccurate, but he's going to throw these bombs and complete these 60-yard bombs, or he's going to get hit in the hip once and he's going to be out for the game. It's hard for me to trust him. It's kind of like the Pat Mahomes thing where I need to see it on a multiple week basis to be able to say, okay, let's get him back in there. And I get it. You spent the first round value on Anthony Richardson and you don't want to hear this. It sucks to hear it, but you're also looking at the results of what you're getting over the first 6 weeks, now head into week 7. At some point, you got to stop beating your head against the wall just because you spent the draft capital on a guy. I think regardless of if it's Anthony Richardson or if it's Joe Flacco, you are sitting both of these Indianapolis Colts quarterbacks against the Miami Dolphins. So those are my start sit options for week 7 of the NFL season. Again, to close it out, my start options: Kirk Cousins going up against the Seahawks, Drake Maye in London going up against the Jaguars. Then we've got Baker Mayfield going up against the Ravens, which is on one of 2 Monday Night Football games. Then my sits, we've got Pat Mahomes going to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. We've got Justin Fields or Russell Wilson with the Steelers taking on the New York Jets on Sunday Night Football. That game will be in Pittsburgh. And last but not least, like I mentioned, the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Miami Dolphins in one of the earlier slated games on Sunday. So, guys, until next time, stay thirsty. Be kind to one another. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Check out all the rest of the great content we got here to get you ready for week 7. And cheers.